You hired a group of really capable and talented people. You asked them to step up and take the lead, and yet they're still coming to you for the final approval or the final sign off on big decisions. And it feels like I didn't ask for this. This is not something. I'm not a micromanager. I want to be hands off. And yet, if people are coming to me, I don't want to reject them. I don't want to say, no, go deal with it if they want my support. So what do I do? Welcome to Leading Small Teams, a real talk podcast tackling the ins and outs of leading teams in the modern workplace. I'm Leah Garvin, your host, with a decade of experience driving team operations in companies like Google, Apple, and Microsoft, bringing you insider strategies to make you a more confident and effective leader. From delegating to feedback to avoiding micromanaging and more, this podcast gives you the tools to empower your team, scale yourself as a leader, and grow your business. Whether you're managing a team of 1 or 100, everyone is welcome to hang out with Real Talk Leading Small Teams. Now, this is a challenge so many of us face in our businesses. And a lot of times our teams come to us because, it's easy for us to make the call. We might have the answer, right? A kind of, off the cuff. We know what we want. It's easy to be decisive. But when our team members are coming to us for the final decision on everything, even if it's a small 2-minute thing, this repeated kind of coming back to us over and over and over, or the bottleneck of even if it's a 2-minute thing, but we're out of town or we don't see the email till the morning or whatever, this keeps us so deep in the weeds. Even if it feels like, again, it's just like here and there, it becomes this death by 1,000 paper cuts that will always create this limit on how you can scale. Now, why is that? Because if you truly are involved in making all of these calls, how can you step up? How can you get out of the day-to-day if everyone is coming to you for kind of even trivial, like little things? You really can't. So as I talk about this today, I want you to be thinking about what are the little things that maybe are easy for you to sign off on, that people are coming to you, that you just don't have to be involved in deciding. Thinking about it? Yeah, think about it. What could it be? Could it be 1 or 2 things maybe? Maybe it's a list of 50 things. But again, as I'm talking, think about what could that be? Jot it down. Write a note on your phone. Write on a Post-it. Hit pause. Come back to this later. Because this is something that's going to create a step change in your ability to kind of see the bigger picture, get out of the weeds, and have your team members really step up in a more ownership kind of capacity. If everyone is coming to you to make the final call, they do not see themselves as having their butt on the line for making decisions. And that right there is the definition of accountability. So essentially, you are the accountable default person on every single thing people get your sign off on. Even if you didn't mean to be, even if you have strong leaders, even if everyone's like really running with stuff and things are flowing, every time it comes back into your court, you become the accountable person because you've made the call. Right? It's if it goes well or doesn't go well or works out or doesn't, it's because of your quote unquote decision. So people always hold back a little bit of that sense of ownership because they didn't take ownership of it. Now, in high-performing teams, what usually happens is this really keeps you stuck in the weeds. You're having to be involved in all of the different meetings, all the different levels of sign-off. You're you're operating as a CEO or business owner or, lead, but you're still also operating at another level of like active leadership team member or team member. So you're operating on 2 levels of altitude. That's doing 2 jobs at once. Maybe it's doing 7 jobs at once. And it keeps you stuck, even if things are moving well, even if, again, it's quick. Now, for teams that are struggling, what happens is you start to see leaders really not step up. They don't take ownership at all. And they do work about 80%, knowing you're going to be the one that gets it over the finish line. Now, that is a bigger challenge because not only are you doing 7 jobs at once, your leaders are never building that muscle and they're not actually asking for it, right? And that's where I say it's on struggling teams because I think in a high-performing team, you're going to be running into a tension where your leaders are trying to make the calls or are trying to get something over the line, but they think that you actually want to make the call potentially, or they're just doing it as a gut check. So it's keeping you stuck. It's keeping you engaged in the day-to-day, but it's for a different reason. If your leaders really don't have the capacity to make the calls, or you don't trust that they're going to make the right calls without you, or you feel like, hey, we're not quite at a place where I can fully step out, there is a lot to work through in that situation. Now, it doesn't mean you have to like get rid of all your leaders and start over, or that people aren't cut out for it. But it means you've really got to build that capacity, because you cannot be relying, like if there's moments when they can't get your sign off, they're just going to be sitting there waiting. Or worse, when you say, hey, I want you to take the lead on this, if you're worried that their instinct isn't going to be to make the right decision, how are you ever going to let go? So what we want to do there is really build up our team leaders' decision-making capacity. Actually, everyone in our entire organization's decision-making capacity. We've got to build that up, because what we want is people that feel confident making decisions, and they're making decisions that are aligned with what you would decide, or what you would hope someone that understood the priorities and the vision for your company would decide. Like maybe they're an expert in their field and you actually don't know what the right decision is. Don't you want someone in leading or overseeing that area or that respective piece of the work to have a point of view on what we should do? Yeah, you do. So again, I'm going to ask you to take a second and think about, what are decisions? Now for this question, where I'm actually not the domain expert, but I'm still weighing in on, what are those? Okay. Maybe it's one thing, maybe it's 10. And who really should be making that call? Now, some of us are listening and thinking, well, yeah, I don't have team members that can do that yet. I'm not in a place where I have, a COO or a CMO or a head of sales or whatever. I don't have a person that can do that. So I'm making the call in the meantime. Okay. So that's good to be understanding, because what you're going to want to do is, once you hire that person and once you figure out when it's time, like to translate some of the decision-making thought process on them so that you can be onboarding them faster. Now, if we do have someone that should be making the call, this is where, boom, we want to make this change immediately. After this episode, I want you to start thinking about, okay, what is the offboarding plan of this decision onto this team member that should be owning it? And when we offload a decision that we're making onto someone else, it's not just saying, okay, like, hey, this is yours. You own it. Make the call. Like, good luck. That's where we get stuck. That's what we think. Well, if I'm not making the call, like, how do I even know they made the right call? It's like, hello, talk about what you do to decide. Talk about how you're going to, get the information. Talk about how you're going to cascade the decision down the chain. We don't just hand it off and say, like, wish you luck. That's what gets us stuck, is thinking it's an all or nothing, thinking that if we don't make the call, someone's going to just pull something out of thin air and it's going to be wrong. We've got to safeguard all of this. And when you think, if I'm not doing it, someone's going to be wrong, or if I'm not doing it, what about this? All the what abouts are things that you solve with simple communication, little systems you can put into place, for lack of a better word. Now, when I say system, I don't mean implementing some like really heavy-handed reporting structure. I'm saying, hey, if I'm handing off this decision, what is the agreement for like how I'm going to be informed on what that decision was? That's what I'm talking about with the system. So if you're not making the call, how do you become informed? Maybe someone sends you a Slack message. Hey, here's what we decided. That's the system. That is how simple this can be. And when I'm working as a fractional COO with businesses and diving in and looking at, okay, what are these little simple systems to remove them from the weeds? That is the level of shift we're talking about, which opens up hours and hours and hours of their time and steps that gets their team members to step up at another level. It's things like that. That's what we mean by a system. Or saying, hey, everyone is constantly writing on Slack and everyone's kind of getting buried and we don't know what decisions are made. Okay, so a system could be, create a Slack channel that says like key decisions made and put them in there. Boom, system. And then ask everyone, hey, every single morning, check this Slack channel. It's going to have the big decisions that are affecting your work every day or this week. Or maybe we send an email on Fridays capturing any decisions that were made. one email takes 5 minutes. Like, this is what I'm talking about. These are simple shifts, but you've got to be looking at, well, what are the breakdowns happening? And all of the breakdowns, I would say, can be identified by the things that are keeping you up at night, that you're getting worried about, that are making you feel stuck, and that you're saying, well, I just have to do it because X, Y, Z. And because we're talking about decisions today, it's about where are the places, again, that you're making calls because it's intuitive, or you don't have someone to do it, or because you're worried someone's going to get it wrong. Those are symptoms of actually not having a clear process for how decisions are made. And when we figure that out, when we actually identify, okay, so when I make a decision, I think about this, this, and this. I consult with X, Y, Z. Then I, break it down into kind of a couple options. I weigh this and that, and then I make a call. That is the simple system. That's your process for making a decision. And sharing that with your team members, that's going to solve both sides of the problem. That's going to solve the problem where you have really competent leaders that want to be making the decisions, but think that you want to weigh in. No, you're saying, okay, I get it. I'm choosing to step out. And it's going to solve that challenge of having folks that haven't quite stepped into that capacity. And you're showing them, okay, here's the process I want you to work through. Show your work like a math problem, and then make the call. And then you get insight into, hey, how is this leader making decisions? How is this team member making decisions? Are they following this process? When they make a decision, is it because, like, I don't know, I just guessed? Or did they have, some things that they were considering weighing? I remember my husband went to design school. He went to art school. And when he was getting, when you'd have to present work in front of the teacher, and when you'd go up there and present a design, you'd have to say, okay, here's what I thought about, here's the client brief, here's the different considerations I work through, and that is why I put this together. If you went up in front of your professor and said, like, I don't know, I just made this, it kind of look cool, the professor's going to rip you to shreds. You want to be, when you are designing or making something, right, especially for a client, you want to be thinking about, well, what's kind of the mental checklist I ran through? It's the same thing with your leaders. And you're already running through a checklist. You specifically, the leader listening to this, you're running through something, even if it's intuitive. So you want to start to get that down, saying, okay, what is this process for making decisions? What am I doing? And that's why, that's one of the first places that I start with my clients, is looking at, okay, what is the process for making decisions? What are you looking at? What are you weighing? What are you thinking? And as we talk through that, and through a series of questions that I use to tease that out, we can really quickly identify, okay, so this is the expectation we want to set with our teams. And then when we communicate that to our managers or our employees or whoever it is, that's where we can start to see everything up levels. And you start to find, okay, I don't have to be in every decision. Now, the last piece of this is maybe you kind of like being involved in everything because this business is your baby, or this is a team you've been on for a very long time. And you're feeling like, well, if I'm not involved in this, like, what actually am I doing? That is a different issue, my friend. And that, again, is about how do you communicate the expectations of how you want to be kept informed, where you want to weigh in, and things like that, so that you don't start to feel like, I've lost control of the situation and I don't know, things have kind of snowballed in a direction that you don't like. But in general, as leaders, we always want to be finding great talent that's better at these individual roles than we would be. Like, that's the point. We can't up-level ourselves. We can't be more strategic if we are the doer of everything. And so again, that's why this conversation around decisions, and thinking about this and starting with what are those 2 or 3 decisions that I'm going to try to offload by doing this is going to free up time so quickly for you. And you're going to say, wait a second, I've got time to focus on the bigger picture things like growing the business, growing the teams, kind of rethinking the strategy, looking at what's next, understanding the implications of AI in my business, whatever it is. We don't have space for that when we are stuck in the weeds. We just don't. Now, this is where the Snippets tool I know I've mentioned on the show a number of times actually comes in really, really handy, because having a place where your team categorizes every week, top wins for the week, priorities for next week, places they're stuck, this is going to show you where maybe they're trying to make decisions, or they're escalating things to you, or they're maybe not escalating things to you. And for folks that are stuck with this kind of making a lot of decisions, using the Snippets tool and implementing this with their team, it takes 5 minutes a week for people to fill out, starts to give them a lot of signal into where they could be using this framework around, freeing themselves from some of the decision making. So if you haven't implemented that with your team, it's a free Google Doc or Word doc template at leahgarvin.com/snippets. And it will give you a place, again, to start to see where are things coming up over and over that you can resolve at once by saying, hey, here is how we decide around this, or here's something I want to offload, or hey, I saw a lot of, this trend is showing up over and over. Let's try this. So it gives you insights on all sorts of things, but it's especially critical if you want to get out of the weeds around this decision-making thing. So grab that at leahgarvin.com/snippets. And if this decision-making thing is like, I'm getting it, I'm feeling stuck, I don't really know where to start, reach out. This is one of the places that starts to unlock the most freedom for you as a leader. We cannot be making every single decision, even if we want to be, even if we feel like it's not taking all of our time, because it will never let your leaders fully step up. So if you want to start unlocking this and you don't really know where to start, or you're like, yes, I want you to help me do this, reach out, hello@leahgarvin.com. We are going to free up so much of your time. But not only that, really get your leaders to step up, because that's going to unlock all of the ability to scale as a team. All right. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope this podcast makes leading your team feel just a little bit easier. If you liked this episode, check out my most popular tool for staying in the know of what your team's working on without having to micromanage at leahgarvin.com/snippets. And if you're looking for more support for yourself as a leader or for the team you're managing, don't hesitate to reach out at leahgarvin.com. See you next time.